The Arizona Diamondbacks, their offense, they scored the most runs in baseball. Oh wait, the Mets and Braves literally tag teamed them and made them get eliminated before the postseason started. Nice. Yesterday I uploaded a video saying why every team in Major League Baseball won't win the World Series, so today it's only fitting to upload why every single team will win the 2024 World Series. All right, let's get straight into it. The Detroit Tigers. This one's really simple. They just need to ride the hot streak that they're currently on. There's always a team, well, not always, but most of the time, there's a team that comes out of nowhere at the end of the regular season, gets into the playoffs, and then just rolls and dominates everybody. The 2021 Braves was a great example of this when they beat the Astros in the World Series. The 2019 Nationals was a great example of this when they beat the Houston Astros in the World Series. The Tigers need to do that. They have a new starting pitching strategy, which really limits the starting pitcher's effect when they're not very good. Just keep doing that, try to get through the postseason like it, and see what you can do. Just ride the streak that you're currently on. The Kansas City Royals. Their best player is Bobby Witt Jr., and he needs to absolutely take the reins and just carry this team to the finish line. That is the only chance. If Bobby Witt Jr. is not the best player on the field every single game he plays, the Kansas City Royals will not be winning the World Series. They have a pretty good rotation, they have a pretty good bullpen, they have a pretty good offense, all things considered, but without Bobby Witt Jr., they do not have enough star power. The Baltimore Orioles. I think this one's pretty simple, and it's that their two starting pitchers have to absolutely dominate. Grayson Rodriguez got shut down about a week ago, and that really hurts them because they only have two extremely talented pitchers, and that's Corbin Burnes and Zach Eflin. Eflin's still a little bit of a question mark, but we know Corbin Burnes is an absolute demon pitcher. However, Dean Kremer's their 3, and the bullpen really isn't that good either. So if the Orioles are going to do anything, they need every time Corbin Burnes and Zach Eflin to touch the ball, they need to dominate and give them length. That's the way that they're going to win the World Series. The Atlanta Braves. I didn't know this until I was researching for this video. They've handled good opponents all season. They actually are the single best team in the National League at beating teams that are over 500. That's very impressive and not something I would have expected, especially with all the injuries they've sustained. And obviously, every single playoff team in both leagues is above 500. So it really does help that they know how to win against good teams, because there are certain teams, not naming any names, the Boston Red Sox, that couldn't beat good teams. And the Atlanta Braves are not one of those teams. So even with their injuries that they've had all year, they've still handled the good opponents. If they can do that in the postseason, they might go on a run. The New York Mets. Honestly, in the nicest possible way, I think the New York Mets are the worst team on paper in this postseason. That doesn't mean it's impossible. This isn't a sport where upsets don't happen. Upsets happen all the time, and the New York Mets have been a great second half team. However, on paper, the Mets do not stack up with the San Diego Padres or the Philadelphia Phillies or the Los Angeles Dodgers or literally really anyone. However, if they play perfect baseball and they make 0 errors throughout the postseason, I think there's a chance that their starting pitching in their offense is good enough to carry them. Again, I think they're the least likely team to win the World Series here, so I have to be a little harsh on them. I don't think they can make any errors. I think they have to play pretty much perfect baseball, and if they do that, especially on the defensive side of the ball, I think they might be able to go on a run, and then once they start, maybe they can ride some momentum, and maybe they can win the World Series, but that's their best chance. The San Diego Padres. They need to continue to not strike out. They have struck out the least out of any team in baseball this season, which is very good. When you put the ball in play, good things can happen. When you strike out, bad things happen 100% of the time. This team is also just insane. In my opinion, I think it's the single most balanced team in all of baseball. Like, the entire roster is good. The defense is a little shaky, but it's pretty solid. The offense, I think, is really, really good. The starting pitching staff is so deep, and the top end is also really good with Dylan Cease and Joe Musgrove. Like, they're really good. And then when you get to Michael King and Yu Darvish, it really doesn't fall off that much. And then the bullpen is also insane with Robert Suarez and Tanner Scott in the 8th and 9th inning. This is going to be a very tough team to beat, and if they don't strike out like they did in the regular season, they're going to win games. They're just going to. The Cleveland Guardians. fans. Bullpen, bullpen, bullpen. Their one and only chance is if their bullpen pitches amazing. Honestly, if I'm Stephen Vogt, I am not pitching my starting pitching for more than 5 innings unless they are absolutely dominating. Unless there's literally a less than 2 hitter going, my starting pitchers are out. I am going to abuse this bullpen. They're extremely big, they're extremely physical, and they handle a workload every single year. They always get overused and they never get worn down. Emmanuel Clase is gonna win reliever of the year. He's the best relief pitcher in baseball. And they just have so many relief pitchers that just absolutely dominate. They're crazy in that bullpen. Their rotation is pretty weak, their offense is pretty weak, but the bullpen is the best in baseball and it's not close. If they can ride the bullpen and give them the bulk of the innings pitched, they have a chance of winning the World Series, but they have to rely on their bullpen almost exclusively for pitching, in my opinion. The Houston Astros. This one, again, it's just simple, but it's experience. They've been to 7 ALCSs in a row, and I'm pretty sure that they were in 4 World Series in that span as well. Yordan, Altuve, Bregman, and Framber Valdez are all experienced postseason players at this point. They're not going to get phased by the bright lights. It's not hard for them. It's nothing new. They always perform in October. And Justin Verlander was left off the wild card roster. And you know what? That actually helps. As much as it feels weird to say, Justin Verlander being left off the wild card roster helps out the Houston Astros because he has not been good this season. However, that is more experience that's off the roster. A little weird. However, they've been there before. They just need to act like that. They just need to settle down and they just need to roll. Go behind that offense, win some games. The New York Yankees. They're the 1 seed in the AL, and I think they are the best American League team. However, I just don't think that they're that amazing compared to the National League teams. The American League is really weak this year compared to normal, but for them to win, power, power, and more power. That's what they're gonna have to do. When you hit home runs in the postseason, you win a lot. The team that hits the most home runs normally wins in the playoffs, and the Yankees hit the most home runs in baseball, so there's a good chance that they end up winning a bunch of playoff games. They led the entire league in home runs, like I just said, and they were 4th in the league in strikeouts pitching. So that means they have power hitting and power pitching. They also need strikeouts in the postseason so that other teams aren't going to hit home runs, and they need to continue to rely on their offensive power. And if they do that, I think they have a very good chance of at least making it and maybe even winning it. The Milwaukee Brewers. I said in the last video, by the way, if you haven't watched the last video, check it out after this one. It's why every team won't win the World Series, so this is the exact opposite, so check that out as well. In that video, I said that the Milwaukee Brewers are not going to win the World Series because they don't hit enough home runs, and they are really scrappy, but that doesn't really work in the postseason. However, if it's going to work in the postseason, you have to double down on it, and you have to win based off of speed. Speed leads to good defense and taking the extra base. Not just stolen bases, but even if you're aggressive, rounding first base and turning it into a double, or turning a double into a triple, or getting an extra run on a sacrifice fly, speed can manufacture runs. The Brewers need to do that with their roster. They have a good roster, but they're gonna have to replace the home runs with taking the extra base. They had a ton of singles, which led them to 75 more stolen bases than any other playoff team. And again, if they use those stolen bases in the playoffs, it really could give them a chance to win the World Series, but they really have to focus on their speed aspect of their game. It's gonna be the most important aspect for them in the playoffs. The Philadelphia Phillies don't hit that cold streak. The Phillies multiple times this season have hit a cold streak and they've gone on a losing streak because of it. They are an extremely streaky team. They streak constantly. They're really hot at times and they're really cold at times. They need to find the hot streak and they need to avoid the cold streak even more than finding the hot streak. I know that that's not really a real determinable factor. Like, you can't really measure hot and cold streaks. However, that's what they need to do. If they're cold in the postseason, if Bryce Harper goes 0 for 12, they're not going to win games. They need to be hot and they need to not be cold even more than they need to be hot. The bullpen and offense are absolutely stacked. The rotation, at least the 1 and 2, are also incredible. The 3 and 4 guys being Christopher Sanchez and Ranger Suarez, that's a little shaky, but they've been good throughout certain parts of this year. But again, they've been cold. They need to get out of that cold streak, and if not, they might lose. Although the Phillies are crazy good, like I said. I think it's them and the Padres to being the 2 best teams in baseball with all of the Dodgers injuries. If they weren't injured, I'd be saying something different, but they're very injured. So I think the Padres and Phillies have the best chance. They just need to play the baseball that they've played when they're hot, not when they're cold. The Los Angeles Dodgers, they need to reverse the struggling narratives from Betts and Freeman, and Ohtani needs to stay as clutch as he's been throughout big games in his career. Betts and Freddie Freeman are not good in the postseason. They're just not. Mookie Betts has struggled every single postseason series offensively. Defensively, he's still been really good in the playoffs, which is nice, but you need more than just defense from Mookie Betts if you want to win the World Series. And same thing with Freddie Freeman. He just didn't hit very much last year. I think combined, Betts and Freddie went 1 for 17 or something like that during the playoffs last year. It was really bad, and if that happens again, they're not winning the World Series. They need the struggles from those 2 players to reverse, and they need Ohtani to be the best player on the field, kind of like Bobby Witt Jr. However, the Dodgers still have a good team, even with the amount of injuries that they've sustained in the rotation. The Dodgers are going to beat you on offense with all those injuries. That's how they're going to win, and the only way that they're going to do that is if their superstars show up, and they haven't in the past. It needs to change. With that being said, go and enjoy the postseason, leave a like on the video, subscribe, and go and check out why your favorite team won't win the World Series if you haven't yet. Thanks for watching.